And I'm sure you ready?
I mean, would it define ready?
Like, should I hit a theme song button?
I mean, you could probably press it gently and it'll work just the same.
I'm gonna rub it around the outside here a couple times. There we go, and gently. Yep.
Oh, no way!
Oh, you found
Oh
it.
my god! No way! Oh my god!
Welcome everybody to Chiller Chatters 8, the Serial Chillers podcast. I ask, as always, how goes it? Hella, Greg.
Oh no, I chicka too early.
Or did I X-Files theme too late?
Nah, it was a Family Guy reference for all those people who are tired of the Simpsons references. All you guys can eat my shorts. Oh, I did it.
Go! Ah! Does your cat's breath smell like cat food? Very good. Moving on.
Yeah.
My cat's breath smells like cat food.
Doing well?
Yeah.
Good. Good to hear.
I'm
Chiller chatters are always fun for Greg and I because we sit here and talk for like an hour and a half before we do any work. It's nice.
It has been 45 minutes.
Yeah, we tend to do that. We're just a couple of fucking gabs, huh? The gift of gab get us together. We're like a couple old hens. We just keep on going, you know. Like I picture us together, Greg, in our. I was gonna say 80s, but I don't think either of us is making that far. So I'm gonna go like maybe early 60s.
I was gonna say mid 40s, but okay.
We're gonna be sitting on a wrapped patio in a fully black home that we painted all black. Don't worry, we don't live in this together or anything. We just have this to hang out in because we're cool ass dudes like that. But
warm today.
yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I was gonna say we're gonna be sitting on a porch saying warm today.
Warmer yesterday.
Even warmer tomorrow.
Oh my god.
Oh, and Randy Newman's just sitting over there playing songs, seeing everything he sees. Gotta take a bite. She's gonna breathe on it first. Wipe it on her blouse.
Okay, so synchronicities like this, like that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like 3 nights ago, maybe Sunday night. I was listening to Coast, and they had like one of the old episodes from like the mid 90s, and they had somebody on talking about synchronicities and what that means, like just talking about synchronicities in general, and like
because you and I have experienced them a lot. Like I mean, even our wives at one point were like, it's weird, dude. Same but different.
Yeah, you guys need to stop that shit. You're like, oh,
come
on, leave it alone. Actually, I'll be honest with you. That was a somewhat of a segue into my story for tonight.
Yeah?
Yeah. Live in a simulation. Oh, no, wait, hold on. Let me scroll up a little bit more. It's confirmed that we live in a simulation.
Yeah.
Run like the wind.
Oh, is that how it's said? I've only seen it in books. I'm doing only the Carter Peter-Schmidt version from now on.
You don't want to do the Marge Simpson version? They're similar voices.
I know. They say we sound similar. Yeah, I don't really hear it.
Never interacted much until now. I think I hear it. So no, I brought an article called "It's Confirmed That We Live in a Simulation" by Fuad Khan from April 1st, 2021. Don't let the date fool you. It's got a good information in there. And it's
I
from
was gonna say,
Scientific
why couldn't it
American
be
website.
like April 21st, 4,117?
Yeah, because time is relative.
Yeah.
No, it was from Scientific American website, but I found it through Biblioteca Pleiades because
Of course,
that's where I trust.
It's only
But
official once it makes it there.
yeah, well, that's reputable sources. They use
Mhm.
DuckDuckGo to search their internal site. Um, can't be tracked. So
Practically a hacker.
basically, I got the fingerless gloves and everything. Um, all my computers are
Somebody's
running.
been watching Swordfish.
All my computers are running DOS. So this article again, it's called "It's Confirmed That We Live in a Simulation" by Fuad Khan from Scientific American's website. It begins ever since the philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed in the Philosophical Quarterly that the universe and everything in it might be a simulation. There has been intense public speculation and debate about the nature of reality. Such public intellectuals as Tesla, leader and prolific Twitter gadfly Elon Musk, have opinionated about the statistical inevitability of our world being a little more than a cascading green code. There's some interview with Elon Musk where he's like, yes, I don't believe we're at base reality, so I'll put this out there. I don't think Elon Musk is that smart or like that cool. Like he's a spoiled rich kid, in my opinion,
I was gonna
who,
say he's bought a lot of cool ideas and made them big.
yeah,
And
exactly. He's funded a lot of cool ideas that other people had.
yeah, for sure.
But I don't think he's that smart per se. I don't think he's done anything outside or innovative outside the box, But
Right.
there's an interview with him where he's trying to sound smart, and he said he doesn't think that we're living at base reality. He said there's like layers to reality. Like if you look at it this way, um, you sit down at your Xbox and you open up GTA, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're controlling the avatar in GTA, and he walks around. You go into his apartment and you sit down at his TV and you watch TV, and then they have a commercial where somebody's playing a video game inside that video game. Or a video game inside that commercial. So now there's multiple layers of reality there. There's the reality of the video game inside the commercial, the reality of the commercial, the reality of the game avatar watching the commercial, and the reality of you, which is what you perceive to be base reality, controlling all of this. And what Elon Musk says is he doesn't think that this reality is base reality.
So either there's something controlling or setting up a simulation that is us.
Right. So recent papers have built on the original hypothesis to further refine the statistical bounds of the hypothesis, arguing that the chance that we live in a simulation may be as high as 50-50.
I like that. I mean, I know you're not a huge fan of him, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think, is also like 100%. Like he's like, dude, the odds are much closer to us for sure being in a simulation than anything else. Like I'm
So
pretty
the
sure
next
that
line of the article
he's on the side.
is the claims have been afforded by some credence by repetition by luminaries no less esteemed than Neil deGrasse Tyson, the director of Hayden Planetarium and favorite science popularizer.
So
Yet
okay, look,
there have been skeptics. So we'll get to the detractors in
for
just a moment.
sure,
But
and I think there's just a lot to be said about. I know, again, I know you're not a huge fan of him, but
it's
I'm
not
not
that I'm
even
not a
like,
huge fan of him. I just think he's a dork who's a little overplayed.
yeah, he is, but
He's smart.
in
Don't get me
this,
wrong.
I was just gonna say, in the same way where Elon is a dork who got super rich, and everybody's like, "Whoa, this guy's fucking cool and genius. He's like Tony Stark." Neil deGrasse Tyson is an actual like borderline genius as far as the
Neil deGrasse
knowledge
Tyson.
that he holds.
Neil deGrasse Tyson studied with Carl Sagan. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, he
Who
did.
also, I disagree with some of the stuff that Carl Sagan says, mostly because I'm a contrarian and just kind of an asshole. But Because I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm smarter than Carl Sagan. I'm smarter than Neil deGrasse Tyson. But I think some of the stuff they say may be controlled opposition. So who am I? Just some guy on the internet. That's right. There is among the skeptics, physicist Frank Wilczek has argued that there's too much wasted complexity in our universe for it to be simulated. Building complexity requires energy and time. Why would a conscious, intelligent designer of realities waste so many resources into making our world more complex than it needs to be? It's a hypothetical question, but it still may be needed. Others, such as physicist and science communicator Sabine Hossenfelder, have argued that the question is not scientific anyway. Since the simulation hypothesis does not arrive at a falsifiable prediction, we can't really test or disprove it, and hence it's not worth seriously investigating. However, all these discussions and studies of the simulation hypothesis have, I believe, missed a key element of scientific inquiry: plain old empirical assessment and data collection. To understand if we live in a simulation, we need to start by looking at the fact that we already have computers running all kinds of simulations for lower level intelligences or algorithms. For easy visualization, we can imagine these intelligences as any non person characters in a video game that we play. But in essence, any algorithm operating on any computing machine would qualify for our thought experiment. We don't need the intelligence to be conscious. We don't need it to be even very complex, because the evidence that we're looking for is, quote, experienced, end quote, by all computer programs, simple or complex, running on all machines, slow or fast. All computing hardware leaves an artifact of its existence within the world of the simulation it's running. I think that's a really interesting line right there. The all computing hardware leaves an artifact of its existence within the world of the simulation it's running. So what that means is you can prove, essentially, if you look close enough, if you look at the game close enough, you can prove that it's a game.
There's an end wall somewhere.
There's a wall, there's a ceiling, there's a floor,
there's
there's a wall, there's a ceiling, there's a floor, there's limits to what can and can't be done. But what I think also what they're saying is that there's trace elements of code. You know, broken games, glitches. Like, remember playing Pokemon on the Game Boy? And you could move that truck and get the glitch or catch it off the coast or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like broken fragments of code that
even the most perfect game is not a perfect game, you're saying.
Right. So this artifact is the processor speed. If for a moment we imagine that we're a software program running on a computing machine, and the only inevitable artifact of the hardware supporting us within our world would be the processor speed. All other laws we would experience would be the laws of the simulation or the software that we are a part of. So essentially, any laws that we deal with in our day-to-day life are rules of the game. And the process.
Why don't they want us to go faster than light? That's dumb.
So if we were a sim or a Grand Theft Auto character, these would be the laws of the game. But anything we would do would be constrained by the processor speed, no matter the laws of the game. No matter how complete the simulation is, the processor speed would intervene in the operations of the simulation. In computing systems,
why.
Yeah.
Their computer can't let us go faster than the speed of light.
It can't process fast enough.
Right.
So in computing systems, of course, the intervention of the processing speed into the world of the algorithm being executed happens even at the most fundamental level. Even at the most fundamental level of simple operations, such as an addition or subtraction, the processing speed dictates a physical reality onto the operation that's detached from the simulated reality of the operation itself. Here's an example. A 64-bit processor would perform subtraction between... Whoa, fuck, buddy. These are big numbers. I'll skip over that. You guys can read this. You guys
64 times 12.
Well, it says a 64-bit processor would perform a subtraction, say, between 7,862,345 and 6,347,111 in the same amount of time as it would take to perform a subtraction between 2 and 1. Granted, all numbers are defined as the same variable type.
I'm going to be honest, buddy. I thought these were like into the quintillions or something, and then you read them off, and they were a single million, and you were going to skip over them.
Is that not a big number to you?
I mean, like in dollars, yes. In having to read it, no.
It's got 2 commas. I had to take 2 pauses.
Fair.
In the simulated reality, 7 million is a very large number, and 1 is comparatively very small. In the physical world of the processor, the difference in scale between these two numbers is irrelevant. Both subtractions in our example constitute one operation and would take the same amount of time.
Oh, so 1 - 1 is the same as 6,800,000. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's just one process.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's one move to be made. It doesn't matter if it's a crazy big long string of numbers or a super basic function. It's all one move to be made by the processor.
So does that mean Usain Bolt's 100-meter dash and my 100-meter dash to the system are the same process?
Yes.
I hate it.
Also, time is irrelevant and circular and all coinciding at the same time. So
Right, because like our time doesn't mean anything because we're not base reality.
well, but also in theory, if time's all coinciding at the same time, you guys left the starting line at the same time. You guys both got to the finish line at the same time. If all time's happening at once, if time's
Yeah, I'm as fast as Usain Bolt.
yeah, basically. Uh Within the abstract world of program mathematics, the processing speed of operations per second will be observed, felt, experienced, noted as an artifact of underlying physical computing machinery. This artifact will appear as an additional component of any operation that's unaffected by the operation of the simulated reality. One of the things I thought was really cool. So I'll skip over a little bit of this here, but the artifact that they're saying exists as a processing speed is the speed of light. Spaces to our universe, what numbers are to the
I was
simulated.
on to him from the beginning.
Yeah, you got there. You absolutely got there before I got there. Spaces to our universe, what numbers are to the simulated reality in any computer. Matter moving through space can simply be seen as operations happening on the variable space. If matter's moving at, say, 1,000 miles per second, and then 1,000 miles worth of space is being transformed by a function or operated on every second. Um, if there's some hardware running the simulation called space, of which matter, energy, you, me, and everything is a part of, then one telltale sign of the artifact of the hardware within the simulated reality space would be the maximum limit on the container size for space on which one operation can be performed. So that to me says that they limit what basically how a game only loads in what's around you,
Yeah.
only loads in what's being acted on.
The draw distance.
Exactly. And because you can make your computer run faster by letting go of the background graphics in the distance, and
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying.
So there's just like a bunch of Antarctica that's just like totally not loaded in right now.
It's just it's why would it be? There's a treaty that says we can't go there, and even if we
This
get
is a
there,
whole bunch of ocean just says
do you
loading.
do you think it's weird that the ocean's all blue, or Antarctica's all white, or space is all void of color? They don't have to add that stuff in. They don't have to you just make it one texture, one color, and bam, go. It's there. And like it's a lot easier for the processing power.
Man, the fun pimps need to get some help with water physics from these Earth designers.
How about some of those freelance Minecraft kids who just make the crazy water physics in that game?
Yeah. What up, kids?
So the maximum speed of the universe, obviously, again, is the speed of light. We don't know what hardware is running the simulation of our universe or what properties it has, but one thing we can say now is the memory container size for the variable space would be about 300,000 kilometers if the processor performed one operation per second. So,
interesting.
Yeah, I think that's pretty wild.
So you know me, I always compare things to pop culture.
Yeah.
And I find pop culture comparisons. If you are a Black Mirror fan, but haven't watched some from like 6 years ago and don't want to get this spoiled, just fast forward like 60 seconds. But there's an episode called Hang the DJ where these two people meet and they're super into each other. And I'm trying to remember it exactly, but basically like they're not supposed to be together in this like world. And they like break the rules and get together and like escape this like like overseeing world by going over this wall. And basically that was like what you saw was one act of a simulation inside a dating app. So
Oh.
it insinuates that it like simulated their life together inside the app millions of times to like give them a comparable comp score, you know?
Oh.
So yeah. So I just thought it was a really cool thing. Like, basically this dating app is simulating their relationship.
Well, if we're
And
gonna
then
make
there's another one really quickly that I thought
yeah.
it's not necessarily simulation, but it just, you made me think of it with like what's controlling it. And like, we don't know what is, there's a Stephen King book called Under the Dome where an entire town gets put under a dome. And
Like the
basically
Simpsons movie.
yeah. Basically in the end, you find out that um, it's like basically little kid aliens. It's like the equivalent of like ants in a magnifying glass
Yeah.
situation. And I just thought some of the stuff you're saying kind of also reminds me, or is triggering that to me.
Yeah.
It's just like it's so unknown, it's so unfathomable. Like,
Well,
what is it? Is it some entity's PC?
so
Someone's just sitting
it's
there.
here's some of the things that make it weird. And I'll read on in this
Oh, you're
article a
just
little
now
bit.
gonna make it weird, huh?
Well, okay, so there's this experiment called the double slit experiment. Have you heard of this?
No.
So basically, they would shoot light at a wall, light particles at a wall, right? Obviously, I mean, just turn a light on, light particles.
Yeah.
And then they put a board in front of it that has a slit cut in the middle. And when they shine the light at it, you get light on the other side coming through in a slit in the shape of the hole cut in the board. They put a second slit in it, so they have two parallel slits. And what would you expect to happen?
So are they like butted together,
No,
or
it's two slits separated.
I would expect to see like
Two, you would
a
expect to see two light slits, right?
yeah.
So what happens is you get chaos on the other side, and you don't get an organized pattern. And they couldn't figure out why. So what they did was they hooked a meter up to it, like I don't know exactly what it was. Not a high speed camera, obviously, but something similar that would tell them that would allow them to observe the particles. And when they turned it on and turned the light on and aimed it at the slits, they got two light shaped slits on the other side. And then
Huh.
they turned the meter off, and it immediately went back to chaos. And then they turned the meter back on, and it went back. It rearranged back into the slits. So then they were like, okay. So like they left the meter there and walked over and unplugged it, and it stayed the slits. It didn't know it wasn't being watched.
Huh.
Yeah. And the guy who was giving this speech was like, if you can make any sense of any of this, you fucking tell me, because we can't. We cannot make sense of the fact of this chaos. It's a super wild experiment, basically saying the act of observing something changes the outcome of it.
Right.
So
Isn't that like the whole idea with like Schrodinger's cat too? Like it's
no,
like
that's confirmation. Because
okay.
Schrodinger's cat in the box is it's both alive and dead, because it's in there with the poison food, and until it eats the food, it
Okay.
won't die. But it's in there; it's going to eventually eat the food. So it existing in there, it's both alive and dead, and you only confirm what it is by opening the box.
Okay. It's just called the observer effect.
Yeah, basically just says when you observe something, you affect the outcome of it. So back to the simulation thing, if it's running as a background process, it's going to happen as chaos or whatever because it's not being acted on. But the act of viewing it and going and interacting with something is going to cause the computer programming to load, and now it's going to react to what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's a trash can in a video game, and it's sitting there, and it's always going to be sitting there doing its thing, being a trash can, until you go over and you kick that trash can over, and now it's reacting to you going over and kicking it. Or as you walk up to it, the flies load in around it, and now you can see the flies. Whereas when you were facing the other way and walking away, they weren't there buzzing around because you didn't see them. You're not
Right.
observing it. So that's kind of what they're saying with the universe, is that what you're not seeing, what you're not interacting with isn't loading. It's not, I mean, it's there, but it's not there. It's there enough for you to see it and get a sense of it, but it's not there enough for you to interact with until you go interact with it. And then beyond that, for them to uh, be able to power a computer, like basically what it was it's like 10 to the 80th power atoms in the universe, and to be able to power a computer strong enough to be able to keep up with processing speeds for every atom to interact individually and stuff like that, you would have to have multiple Dyson spheres, which are the electric geofences that
Yeah,
encapsulate
yeah, yeah,
planets
yeah.
and draw the planet's energy.
Right.
You'd have to be like harnessing the power of black holes to have a computer strong enough to run a simulation like that. But if it only loads with what you interact with, then it doesn't have to.
Then
It
maybe
doesn't
my
have
Ryzen 9 could handle it.
maybe. Basically, what they're saying is the speed of light's the artificial hardware, or the hardware artifact showing that we live in a simulated universe. But it's not the only indication that we live in a simulation. Perhaps the most pertinent indication has been hiding right in front of our eyes, or rather right behind them. To understand what this critical indication is, we need to go back to our empirical study of simulations we know of. Imagine a character in a role-playing game, say a sim, or a character in Grand Theft Auto. The algorithm that represents the character and the algorithm that represents the game environment in which one character operates are intertwined at many levels. But even if we assume that the character and the environment are separate, the character does not need a visual projection of its own point of view in order to interact with the environment. The algorithms take into account some of the environmental variables and some of the character state variables to project and determine the behavior of both the environment and the character. The visual projection, or what we see on the screen, is for our benefit, but it's a subjective projection of some of the variables within the program so that we can experience the sensation of being in the game. Basically, it leads you where it wants you to go.
It's like it's more linear than it looks. It's like those games that look open world,
Right.
but they kind of guide your path throughout it.
Kind of, yeah. Like it puts limits.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the other things I thought was interesting, and I'll leave it at that after I tell you this, because I don't know a whole lot about it. But one of the scientists that was talking about the simulation theory says that when we break down the building blocks of the math that got us to like string theory and quantum physics and the beginning of the universe and stuff, what we find is computer binary code. Like in the base
Zero
elements.
zero 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 one zero 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 1 1 1 1.
Yeah. Oh, 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 one. But
Come
also
on, sucker, lick my battery.
it's gotten to the point too where they can put computer code in DNA now.
Yeah, that's too much to think
So
about for my little brain.
so finding binary code, like, the base elements of code at the very building blocks of everything that makes up everything was a huge discovery for them. And so that just that could be more of the hardware artifacts that they're talking about, where we found we
Yeah,
got down to the bare limits of what the smallest particles that the game would give us, and then it dissolves into code after that, because it's not ready for us to go, it's not built for us to go below that, because it doesn't exist below that. Does that make sense? A little bit.
well, I was
As
gonna say if I
as
say
much
yes, I'd be kind of lying, but
as
yeah,
me
no.
explaining quantum physics can.
Right, yes, yes, yes.
So
The
yeah, I
hella
mean,
Greg lesson on quantum physics.
I know I'm like the worst person to explain it, but
Course one.
I find stuff like this and I'm like, dude, that's so wild. And then I'll read about it for a little bit and I'm like, get the fuck out.
I don't think you're the worst person to explain anything. You're very good at like, giving the information and then sort of breaking it down for the layman.
And so
Which
that's how
is
I need to
generally
process it.
me
Yeah.
when it comes to things like this. What's funny is like honestly, like a lot of the things that you and I talk about, as far as like quote unquote conspiracy, because I hate the word now. It's gotten very convoluted. But
Yeah.
just these types of things, the quirky things Hella Greg is kind of known for. Uh, Simulation theory is for sure like at the top of my list of things where I'm like, probably so. Probably so.
Of all
You
of
know,
everything I've brought you over the years and been like,
uh,
hey dude, look at this. This is
there's a
the one
lot of
that's
fun stuff.
this
There's a
is the
lot of
one that
fun
you're like
stuff.
that you believe me on.
Yeah, I mean, there are other ones where I'm like shreds of, yeah, that's totally plausible, but like as a whole, probably not. Simulation theory to me feels like, yeah, that probably just could be,
Yeah.
just could
I
be.
mean, it's and we've seen it so much in pop culture with like Total Recall and The
Baby,
Matrix.
make me wish I had three hands.
But I
Yeah,
mean, like when you look at The Matrix, that's basically what this is. And then it leads to bigger questions like who's controlling the simulation, who built it, why? Like, is this
yeah.
literally just GTA for them? Are we the Sims? Is that why we forget things when we walk into a room? Because they canceled the action? Like,
They put
is
us
it
in the pool and took the ladder away.
yeah, I mean there's
Yeah,
there's there,
it's interesting.
answering some of these questions only leads to bigger questions, which is why I'm afraid that a lot of these questions won't ever get answered. If that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so I don't know. Something to think about.
Fair. It is. Well, shit, man. Very good. Tough to follow. I'm gonna be honest. Whole completely different direction. We don't coordinate stories, which I
No.
think brings something to Chiller Chatter.
It gives you a variety, a nice potpourri.
Yes, good old potpourri. Don't eat that stuff though.
Tastes awful.
Tonight I will tell you guys something that'll probably excite you all, is that I didn't write this. Kelly G did. And we all love ourselves a good little Kelly G episode. So Kelly G, kind of at the beginning of the season, hooked me up with a lot of things she said. These are just like shorter stuff that I've worked on. I don't know if it's going to be, worth a whole episode. And I was like, dude, you won't believe it. And Kelly G was like one of the first people to know about the new format, because she does so much work for us. And she was like, dude, that's perfect. And I was like, fucking no, right? And then here we are. So here's one of those that she sent my way. And basically, I didn't title it because there's already a really good title in the documentary, and it's called "There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane." Have you heard of this
No.
documentary? Okay.
No.
It's I know you laugh now.
Oh, you
Yeah.
let me laugh?
Oh, what was I supposed to do? Stop you?
Yes. Hey,
I'm,
hey, don't laugh at this shit.
I'm 2,600 miles away. Well, sounds like you're editing. So today we're going to cover the Taconic Parkway crash that happened in New York in 2009. Going to jump right in by mentioning that this is a quote unquote true crime story. So deaths involved in this crash were homicides, and the driver, Diane Schuler, was solely responsible for every single death. The only thing we can do now is try to answer the question, why? So sorry I let you laugh, but you can already see that this is...
To be fair, I wasn't laughing at the case. I was laughing at the name. Which, I mean,
Yeah.
like, I feel like that was their fault for using that name.
I know. Gosh, I just hate to tell you this. The reason they call it that is because one of the children in the van called their parent and said, there's something wrong with Aunt Diane. She can't
Fuck.
see.
God
And
damn
I'm going to
it.
tell you now, spoiler alert, they didn't live. Um,
I'm just gonna go
so
ahead and stop making jokes for this.
well, that's what the show is. We're never making jokes at any, like, if there's ever been a show that blended comedy and true crime and
It would be Last
hated the
Podcast on
criminals as much as, yeah, right.
Death.
But I mean, like, I feel like we're very clear in our opinion that, like, The criminals are fuckfaces, and we're very sorry to the victims. And we
Yeah.
try to not ever make jokes at their expense or blaming them, because like they did nothing to deserve, like, especially these victims. So let's talk about the crash and why 8 lives were lost that day. At around 1:30 on Sunday, July 26, 2009, a Ford Windstar van driven by Diane Schuler carrying her son, daughter, and 3 nieces entered the wrong exit ramp to the Taconic Parkway, heading southbound in a northbound lane of traffic. I mean, already fucking bad news. You're
Yeah,
going the
it's
wrong
all
way on the highway.
at highway speeds.
Yes. She passed several signs warning her of her mistake and drove 1.7 miles south to the impact point. So from the time she got on to the highway to the time she hit a vehicle, it was 1.7 miles. It was later discovered that she was going 85 miles an hour on impact head on. During these 1.7 miles, several calls to 911 came in from motorists who saw it happening. They shouted things like, quote, "A guy's going 70 in the wrong direction," and, quote, "flying like a bat out of hell." Years later, when interviewed, witnesses said Diane was driving, quote, "pin straight, no swerving." They also said, "We reacted. She had no reaction at all." End quote. I thought they were dead set on killing themselves. Diane would hit a Chevy Trailblazer carrying 3 men, and the Trailblazer hit another vehicle. All the passengers in the Trailblazer were also killed. Diane Schuler, her daughter, and all 3 of her nieces were killed in the Windstar. Her son was the only injured survivor. All of the passengers in the third vehicle were injured but not killed. The victims were Aaron Schuler, Emma Hance, Allison Hance, Kate Hance, Guy Bastardi, Michael Bastardi, and Daniel Longo. Kelly G did not include Diane because she's not a victim. So there were 8 deaths and 7 victims. What are your thoughts so far, Greg?
That's so wild. That is so wild. So like text to life connection. When I was selling tractors, I worked right off the 101, and right down the street from my job was where Highway 46 West and Highway 101 met. And somebody was drunk one night. This young lady was drunk and did the same thing. She got on 101 going the wrong direction at highway speeds. She was doing like 85 or 90 and hit another car head on, and it killed everybody involved. And like
Sucks.
it's so wild. And like she was drunk. She was intoxicated, and like I don't know, I don't remember the full story, but like that was, there was other circumstances at play. I don't know the rest of this story yet, but it's just
Right.
it's crazy because you said she drove almost 2 miles,
Yeah.
and cars are swerving out of the way. Like at any point was she like, man, all these cars are going the wrong direction?
Well,
Like,
and even at 85 miles an hour, 1.7 miles, that's 90 seconds of driving. Like
yeah,
you're yeah.
yeah, you're cooking.
Right. Unless you're just completely zonked out, like you're just in the zone. I don't know. Let's move on. To reiterate, these deaths were homicides based on Diane's negligence. No charges were filed, however, because Schuler, quote, died in the crash and the charges died with her. So, about the killer. Diane Hance was born in Floral Park, New York in 1973. She was the
Hold
4th
on.
child and only girl. Yep.
When you said she died in the crash and the charges died with her,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that at all.
Well, that was a quote from the sheriff's department.
That makes it even
Yeah.
worse. I don't
Yeah.
like that at all. I feel like, well, and again, I'll wait. I'll reserve judgment until I hear the whole story. But I feel like that smacks of a cover up. That somebody somewhere was like, nah. But
I mean, how do they charge someone who's dead?
well, again, if she's like a little mind controlled there, and she's like, on drugs, or if she's, I don't know. I don't know the circumstances. I'm just saying,
Right.
to hear that, to not know the end of the story, and then to hear that, I'm like, okay, I want to hear more. I want to know. So
All
continue.
right. Yeah. Please let me know your updated opinion as we continue on. Let's see. Okay, fourth child, only girl. She was 9 when her mother left the family. Her mother just abandoned. It was rumored that she left with a neighbor or family friend. Diane at that time assumed all the roles her mother would have. So like at 9, she started like like taking care of the house. It has been noted that it is odd a 9-year-old girl wouldn't go with her mother during that time period. But moving into adulthood, all of Diane's brothers had a relationship with their mother, but Diane did not. It's almost as if her mother specifically like didn't want anything to do with her. Growing up, Diane was known as the class clown, the loudest, the biggest personality, but she was quote unquote heavy and did not ever have a boyfriend going through high school. She eventually met Daniel Schuler and fell in love. She worked for Cablevision and was the director of credit, bills, and collections, making over $100,000 a year, and people described her as powerful. So she's doing pretty goddamn good for herself, like
Yeah.
her early 2000s 6-figure income, like that's a solid start.
That's fucking impressive.
Uh,
I mean, shit, I'd like that
yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly. They wondered where lots of people wondered where she found the time to have everything ironed and be the first one at preschool drop off line. They said she was the boss and the family was the most important thing to her. They said that she made all of the decisions, and if she didn't like you, she could be difficult. So she just sounds like a bad bitch, like, and you don't get to be in a position like that without being like a
Yeah.
little put the fear of God in people. Like, that's
Yeah.
why you get that sort
I
of
was gonna say
position.
she sounds tough, no nonsense, strictly business, which I gotta
Right.
respect.
Yep. Yep. Especially if it's like a work thing and then it sounds like at home, she's like, I take care of shit. My kids are first to preschool. I'm badass and everything's handled. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So on Sunday, July 26, 2009, Diane was finishing up a weekend spent with her husband, Daniel, their 2 kids, her 3 nieces, and their dog. They had borrowed the van that they were camping with from Warren and Jackie Hance, the parents of the 3 nieces. Warren is Diane's brother. Okay, so Diane, her brother Warren, they borrowed her van. They have his 3 kids, um, 3 daughters. So they went to the Hunter Lake compound, which is basically, think it's a lake. It's got campsites. It's got RV parking. There's probably some bathrooms and things like that. It's
Yeah.
camping, but it's a little easier than just hoofing it out and setting up a tent in the woods. But this is located somewhere in the Catskill Mountains. So the timeline of the day has been pieced together by witness statements and some video evidence. At 6 a.m., Daniel got to their boat to clean up from the weekend. At 6:45 to 7, Daniel woke up Diane. They cleaned up the camper and wanted to leave before traffic. They packed, woke up the kids, got them dressed, loaded up bags, and drank some coffee and left. Diane took the 5 children in the Windstar, and Daniel took the dog in his truck. At 9 a.m., Warren got a call from his oldest, Emma. Remember, Warren is her brother, the dad of the 3 nieces. That's the last time I'll remind you guys, I promise.
No, I mean I'm glad because sometimes when there's a lot of names involved, I'm like,
I
wait,
know
Warren,
that.
Warren, Warren. Why do I know
And I'm
Warren?
trying to be better about reminding who people are, because sometimes as an avid audiobook reader at the beginning of books, I'll find myself rewinding quite a bit, being like, wait, who is that one? Who's Mike? Like, what was Mike again? So yeah, I totally get that. Okay, so at 9 a.m., Warren receives a call from his oldest daughter, Emma. She said that they had a great time and they're on their way home. They stopped at McDonald's and there's video of them going inside and eating and playing at the play place. So, like, it's a normal day so far. At 10:46 a.m., Diane pulled into a Sunoco gas station. The video is widely available on the internet and it's in the documentary. She goes inside. There's no audio, but the attendant remembers her asking for gel cap pain medication, but they didn't have any, so she left. So, Advil liquid gels, which I actually prefer too. I feel like they work much faster. Like, that's my go-to is a liquid gel whenever I like need some painkillers. So I get that. But also, I wouldn't turn down another painkiller. Like, if something was hella hurting, I wouldn't be like, oh, you don't have gel caps? Well, peace out then, bitch motherfuckers.
Nah, just crunch on
Uh,
this Advil, this delicious Advil.
Just dry between your teeth.
Hate it.
Oh, and I have cotton mouth. I'm just gonna have to wait for it to soak in through my cheeks. Uh, at 11:37, so this is nearly an hour after the gas station. She called Jackie, who is Warren's wife, and says that she's running late, but still to get tickets to the play that they were going to that evening. So before noon, she's like, "Hey, we're still heading home," and she's like making plans. Hey, make sure you get me tickets. I'm still going to be there tonight. At 12:13, she entered the toll plaza, and at 12:55, a wrong number was dialed from Diane's phone. At 1:01, Diane called Jackie again and seemed disoriented and not making sense. It was a 2.5-minute call. Warren called back, and Diane called him Danny and still sounded very weird. He told her to pull
Is
over
Danny one
and
of her
stay
other
there.
brothers?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to.
That's fair.
But that's a good it's a great question. I was gonna say maybe look it up while I keep going. But yeah, she called him Danny. Still sounded to Warren, she still sounded very weird. He basically said, "Pull over, I'm coming to you." He gets back on the phone with Emma, and she says there's something wrong with Aunt Diane. She can't see. Warren tells her to read him a sign, and Emma sees one that says Terrytown, so he leaves Long Island and tries to find them. At 1:02, she crosses the Tappan Zee Bridge. At 1:10, someone dials 3 wrong numbers from her phone, and at 1:15, Warren calls Diane, and it goes to voicemail. She had left her phone on the divider next to a pull-off at a bridge that she had stopped at, so the phone is no longer even in the vehicle after about 1:15. So calls were made to 911 to try to locate the van. They didn't know how she got to the Taconic Parkway exit, but she made her way there, and that's when the crash happened. An off-duty New York City police officer called 911 and reported multiple fatalities. The guys who first got to the van, opened the door, and said Diane fell out of the car dead. The kids were piled up. The van wasn't even red anymore. I promise you, you don't want to watch the last 10 minutes of the documentary. You will see photos of her after the crash, says Kelly
Oof.
G. So it's also super hard to watch. The parents who just lost 3 kids, Jackie and Warren, declined to be interviewed for the documentary. But at the funeral, Warren said, "Love your children, cherish your children, kiss your children." And in a letter written by Jackie, she wrote, "Warren and I are broken, and my life ended that day." The lone survivor was 5-year-old Brian, Diane's son. He had a serious brain injury that triggered an oculomotor nerve palsy, something that affects eye movement. So you've for sure seen it before. It happens a lot in people with albinism, where their eyes kind of just do a lot of bouncing back and
Like
forth.
flutter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So he also had several broken bones. The only thing he has said about the crash since is that mommy had a headache and mommy couldn't see. So
Dude,
remember, he's 5.
yeah. Hearing everything that you said, it sounds like she had a stroke. It fully sounds like she had a stroke and she was confused, disoriented, didn't lose full function, but lost some of the reasoning skills and
Well, listen, we've got a Kelly G list here. So I've got 2 more pages of information for you
hold on,
after the
tell me she
accident.
included the paranormal aspect. Is there a paranormal aspect this time?
There's not, but if there were any angle, trust that Kelly G would have had it covered.
Kelly G, you owe me one.
Okay, so you owe me one. Okay, so the 5, that's also very sad to me. Like, as a dad, the
Yeah.
kid survived, and he just remembers mommy had a headache, mommy couldn't see. So
Yeah.
5 days after the funeral, a press conference was held with police at the Westchester County Coroner's Office. Diane's blood alcohol content was 0.19 at the time of the crash. That is the equivalent of 10 drinks. The director of toxicology said her gastric contents were 0.25%.
Yeah,
Apparently,
that's
usually
19% alcohol, man.
Usually after 0.2% of gastric content, you'll be in the ER. According to the autopsy, there was not organ damage that would suggest a history of alcohol abuse. There were 6 grams of alcohol in her stomach, not yet absorbed into her bloodstream as well.
But also, if she had like pain, maybe she took like the Tylenol, uh, like the juice, you know?
The like, chloroseptic spray.
Yeah, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like maybe she took, maybe she mistook something like the Tylenol drink that they have for like NyQuil and accidentally took that. You know, and
Let's
she
move
was
on.
robo tripping.
I love that you're continuing to throw out theories. Keep them coming, and we'll see if any of them get disproven or some of them might get left
Right
hanging.
now,
You'll never
strokes in
know.
the lead for me, but
Okay. I
robo
happen
tripping's
to
a close
know.
second.
I happen to know that there's an answer to all the questions you've asked so far.
Yes.
She also had a very high level of THC. Now you know me. I keep THC in the bloodstream. I'm not a huge fan of get mega high and go drive. That's not. It's still a
It's
DUI,
irresponsible.
guys. It's irresponsible, right?
It's actually a
But my
DWI now.
yeah, it's true. My fear was always before it became legal that I would die in a car accident and they would be like, "Oh, look at this. There's a bunch of THC in his blood. He must have been some stony guy." And it's like I
What a
know
druggo.
right that I would never go and get. So for me, 113 nanograms per liter is very high, and it does suggest that she had used recently. So it's not a number that
You didn't have time to
uh
metabolize out.
yeah, it's not a number that you see like someone who I haven't smoked yet today, but I smoke every fucking day, baby. It was like someone who pulled over and ripped one on the side of the road,
I feel
probably,
like,
maybe an hour beforehand.
and I could be wrong, but I think what
And
I've seen in the
also, I'm not a
past.
scientist. That's based on just my quick research.
Well, I feel like what I've seen in the past is like in the declining graph of THC in the bloodstream as it metabolizes. Like it's high once you take a bong rip and it's going to be up here, and then it peters off, and then there's a steep decline after it starts to metabolize, and then it plateaus, and then there's another steep decline as it's expelled from your body. And for it to still be at a reasonably high level, like you said, shows that it's probably pretty
Right.
recent. But again, the fuck do I know? Using the
In the
show for research.
documentary, in the documentary, they also say that if you have alcohol in your system, generally the effects of THC will increase as far as your
Oh, a
um
crossfade. Yes, I've experimented with those.
I think it means more like you stay higher longer. Your body's metabolizing marijuana slower
It's
while you're
prioritizing
drunk,
the alcohol. Let's get it out
I
of here.
guess. They also found an absolute vodka bottle in the van. Daniel said they kept it at the campground all season and she might have packed it up. Diane's family held a press conference and went on shows like Larry King, saying that she would never do that to them and there's no way that the toxicology was correct. They maintained that she had a medical episode or something and that they wanted to prove it. HBO filmmakers waited 6 months to ask for interviews. They asked what did the family hope to get out of it, and they said that they just want answers and a correct autopsy. Apparently, for the documentary, Daniel was paid $100,000 to go into a trust for Brian. Before the filmmakers stepped in, Diane's family had already paid a lot. Reports of upwards of $30,000 for drug retesting. So basically, to retest toxicology, they were paying out of pocket to get it get they wanted better results. Turns out the results continued to be the same. It was her DNA and there was alcohol in her system. No sign of stroke, no sign of aneurysm or heart attack.
No sign
So
of stroke,
according
no
uh,
sign of aneurysm, no sign of heart attack.
correct in
Huh.
official from her autopsy.
Huh.
because it was a car accident. You know, she wasn't obliterated into a million
Right, right,
pieces.
right, right,
Like
right.
they were able to take a good look. So she, as of right now,
I mean, looking at
it
the car,
sounds
it looks
like
like it
drunk and
looks
high.
rough. It looks
Yeah.
like
I've never looked at the pictures. I've known about this story a long time, but I could never bring myself to look at the pictures of this one.
I mean, I'm looking at them right now.
It's rough.
It's intense.
Yeah, I bet.
It looks like a ball
So
of aluminum foil that's been set on fire.
that's only what I can imagine. That was the car wasn't even red anymore thing, right? Like it's
I
just
mean, you can see where it
scorched.
was red around the bottom, but literally everything except like the back left quarter panel on the bumper, that's red. Everything else is like charcoal white.
Yeah, it's wild. So with the help of the filmmakers, they obtained some of her medical records. Diane had an abscessed tooth for some time. Some people say approximately 7 weeks, which, like, dude, any tooth pain is fucked. An abscessed tooth would be insane. So let's back up and take a look at a timeline and look at some eyewitness reports really quick. For months, Daniel and Diane's friends and family reported seeing Diane holding her jaw as though as it was in pain or as though it was really bothering her. That morning, the landlord at the campground said that she seemed sober. She remembered exactly what they had said. Like, she was coherent. Everything that the landlord said, Diane was like, yeah, I got it for sure, and repeated it back. The McDonald's cashier remembered the family and said Diane seemed very normal. In the footage that was reviewed by officers, they said there was no indication of intoxication. The attendant at the Sunoco said he knew, quote, for a fact that she wasn't drunk, and she was there when she was there. Also, the officers said again in the video, there's no indication of intoxication. But the fact remains, what should have been a 35-minute drive took Diane 4 hours before the accident. Around the noon mark, you start getting witnesses reports of someone driving like an asshole or, quote, aggressively. They use words like, I was cut off, and say things like, I could see children's heads swaying inside the vehicle. One guy said in reference to his back bumper that she was so close I could see her headlights, and his wife, quote, braced for collision. They said that she tried to pass them on the shoulder, but seemed to think better of it, and they called her a nut. She is said to have pulled over at a truck stop and pulled into the semi area rather than the car area. They said she bent over and was possibly getting sick. An additional eyewitness is said to have seen her possibly getting sick. Unless some crazy conspiracy happened where someone took her hostage and forced alcohol down her throat, she was obviously definitely drinking. Toxicology. There are eyewitnesses that report seeing her vomiting in a parking lot.
I'm still
I mean,
thrown
which
on the
is
whole
they're
like
not mutually exclusive, but
right, but I'm still thrown on the whole like what should have taken 35 minutes took 4 hours. Like how? How? Like a
you're just
35-minute walk won't take 4 hours.
just driving around. I don't
mean, was
know.
she
I
like in
that I mean,
town?
I
Was
think
she on a highway? Was she
you know that's why I'm telling you this story right now.
and then
It's such a fucking mystery.
and there's another adult in the car. It's not like it's her by herself. So why is this guy
No,
not like
no other adults. No.
oh,
He's not. There's
I
no
thought her brother was in the or her brother was in the car with
husband drove the truck. He drove the truck home from the campsite.
oh.
It's her son and daughter, and her 3 nieces.
Okay, so I was thinking he was in the car with okay.
Yeah. She and 5 children.
So she oh geez, dude.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay, so what about the abscess? They can sometimes cause fevers, and what if she was trying to self-medicate, but it was all made worse by fever? So that's what one of Kelly G's theories is, that she had maybe done like the classic, I'll soak a rag in alcohol and, put it on, like, your grandma would tell you to do to your baby's gums or whatever.
Buddy, I had a tooth removed like what 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. I had to get a tooth pulled because it had
Uh-huh.
abscessed, and that shit's an awful pain. Like I couldn't scratch my jaw on the outside without it hurting,
Yeah, I
and
can only
like
imagine.
it was wild. And so like I can imagine you get to the point where you're like, yeah, let me try anything. And if you think like, because I was using like antiseptic mouthwash before I ended up going and getting it pulled. I was like, I gotta do something, and I used antiseptic mouthwash, but I know that has alcohol in it.
Yeah.
So, if she was
Yeah.
using vodka, which is just a clear, odorless, tasteless liquor, you just fucking swish it around and hope for the best. And I can see how, especially if you've got an open sore or open wound, how that could get into your bloodstream kind of quick.
Yeah, and that's what Kelly G says. She says, I don't know if you've ever had some really bad tooth pain, but sometimes if you had hold alcohol on it, you can sort of numb it. What if she was just doing that over and over and didn't realize how much she had ingested? And it was so bad, basically, that she just got blackout drunk. Now, the family's lawyer said, do I have an answer for that day? No. They said in the documentary that when someone is being demonized, the tendency by the family is to try to make them a saint. And Kelly G believes that's the case here for Diane, based on all the evidence. She was drunk and high. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
They were camping. I mean,
Yeah.
who's not drunk and high while they're camping?
Yeah, but you can't wake up still drunk and high and drive 5 kids home.
Well, clearly, but
can it be blamed on the abscess and the possible fever-induced delirium? Maybe, but the families and other victims just want the family to own up to it. They just want Diane's family to say, Diane was drunk and high, we're sorry.
Well, but for what? Because
they said that they can start to forgive, but they need them to stop denying it first.
Fair. And I mean, I guess I understand just wanting there to be a little bit of accountability.
Yeah.
But at the same time, why is it on the family? They didn't do it. It's
Right.
not, you know what I mean? Like, that would be like,
I think they're just saying, hey, quit spending your money to try to say that the toxicology reports are incorrect because they keep coming back the same thing. We just want you guys to accept it so that we can accept it so that we can all move on together.
I
Like
guess
that's I
fair.
think what we're getting at.
Yeah. That's fair.
They said that they said they can start to forgive, but the family has to stop denying it. Also in the documentary, they say there is no evidence that Diane was a bad person at all. And that seems to be very true, but she did make a giant mistake. The aftermath is just very sad. They can't get permits to exhume her body to do more testing because obviously her family is blocking that. The families of the victims in the Trailblazer that was hit sued Schuler and the father of the 3 deceased nieces because he was the owner of the van. They said that they didn't want to do that, but that's the way the law required it to be done.
Right. I was going to say it's probably not him, but it's probably the insurance companies that are going after him.
Yeah.
Because somebody has to pay.
Yeah. So Jackie, the girl's mom, sued Daniel because the girls suffered, quote, terror, fear of impending death, extreme horror, fright, and mental anguish before they died. And Daniel sued the state for, quote, not keeping the road safe. By 2014, all lawsuits were either settled or dropped. Within 5 years, that's actually a very small time.
That's crazy. That's super fast. But I guess when it
I
gets national attention,
imagine Daniels was the one that got dropped. The not keeping the road safe one. Sorry, Daniel. They made a Law and Order episode with almost the exact same plot. Stephen King has a story called Herman Wouk is Still Alive, and it is based on the crash. This is how I found out about it. So that story came out in 2011, and I think it came out in it was a short story he did in The Atlantic or something. And I heard about it, so I got the copy of The Atlantic. I read the story. And then 2 months later, the audio version came out. So I listened again, and the audio version has Stephen King. He does this he almost always does an afterword, just talks to you like you're chilling together. And he talked about this accident. Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's usually a little quicker, but yeah, he talked about this accident. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit. And so I looked it up as a true crime thing and found out that it was that. So
that's super interesting. And I think, 2 years I feel like is maybe not enough time. He could have marinated on that for a little bit because it happened in 2009. And the lawsuits and stuff weren't even settled.
Well, his story is not this at all. It's just it is and it isn't. Basically, his story, spoilers again, go read a 10-year-old story that came out in May. Yeah, basically his is it's two women have, I think, 2 or 3 kids, and they're just like, they can't provide for them anymore. They're down on their luck. They're broke. They got no way to turn it around, and they're like driving, and they like just mutually agree without saying anything to drive the car off a cliff. But the story mostly takes
Thelma and
place.
Louise with kids.
Yeah, the story mostly takes place setting up around the characters who get to the scene of the accident. So it's like setting up the day of all the characters who arrive. So,
Cool.
yeah. But some good came from the story. Jackie Hance wrote a book called I'll See You Again, and the parents who lost all 3 of their girls started the Hance Family Foundation. It promotes young girls' self-esteem. But basically very sad overall. The sources for this one are There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane, and the Wikipedia. So yeah, man, that's the end of my freaking report. Sorry to bring down the mood at the end there.
No, I mean it's
But it is a
wild.
fascinating story with a lot of mystery surrounding it.
I still have so many questions that I want answered, and I want the answers. Like,
yeah.
why did it take her 4 hours to go 35 minutes? Like, I mean, you know what I mean. You get what I'm getting at there.
100%. Well, yeah. Was she just driving around? Like, was she parked? Was she?
Yeah, and like, unfortunately, everybody who knows has passed away. You can't ask them.
Yep. Well, pretty good, man. Thank you for the simulation thing. I love talking about that. It's fun, and it's just interesting and quirky and good. So
it's always fun to think about stuff like that, but it always makes me feel like super small and insignificant when I think about.
I mean, I already, even if we're not in a simulation, how do you not feel small and insignificant? You know, when you like look out and realize,
and
just on a rock flying through space, and
it makes me think of what's that quote where or I can't remember the guy who said it, but he said either we're completely alone in the universe or we aren't, but both are equally terrifying.
Right? That is very. It's the first time I've heard that, but I don't like it at all.
Yeah, and you're like, oh fuck yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about the simulation. Like, either it's a simulation and all this is pre-programmed and nothing really matters, or it's not a simulation and it's all complete chaos and anarchy and nothing really matters. So take that for a nihilist viewpoint. But it's kind of like, I don't know, that's just how, when I start thinking about the simulation thing too much, that's kind of where I go, where I'm just like, dude, I've seen the Matrix. Like, my real body is just all like shriveled and emaciated and hairless and like stuffed in a box somewhere, and like there's a bunch of electrodes hooked up to me, and they just keep pumping chemicals into me to make me hallucinate the reality around me, so that my brain secretes certain things to make my body sustain itself on the pace that they keep injecting into me every day, so I live, so they can use my body as a battery to power something else that probably some rich guy's using.
Great. So you turned it dark at the end too. So that's good. We both did that.
But I mean, like, that's immediately where I go when I'm like, oh, I'm a simulation. Like, yeah, that's what's happening. I'm just powering some rich guy's refrigerator, and he lets me think I'm podcasting with my friend.
Well, at least he lets you do that.
I mean, beats doing anything else.
I guess so. Well, that was a good shit, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy. Well, guys, check us out everywhere. Chiller Chatters 8. Wrapping up. Anything special you want to say, Greg? Last chance.
No, here, you want to pick a card real quick? I have them in front of me. Tell me when to stop.
Yeah, you got it shuffled. Stop.
Okay.
Immediately saw a circle.
It's a star.
Fuck. So I'm very bad at this. I think.
Tell you what, though.
I think I got like the first 2 right ever, and then never got another one right ever again.
I will tell you this: the one before that, is a circle.
If I hadn't long enough, right?
No,
I too long.
I'm gonna count. I'm gonna call it ping, because there's a delay.
Okay. All right.
You know what I mean?
I did immediately see a circle.
So I will qualify. I will give you the win, but I will put an asterisk.
I'll take it. I'll tell you what. How about instead of the asterisk, I'll take half a win.
We don't do halves.
All right, I'll take the asterisk. For Hella Greg, I'm Cromula Jesse. Remember, don't talk to strangers.